Good evening, Tiger fans. Thanks for joining us this week on the Perry Thomas Show here on the Campbellsville University Sports Network. Matt Payton with you in the WLCU studios here at CU to cover all things Fighting Tiger football. Campbellsville this past weekend went on the road. They had their longest road trip of the season as the head coach Perry Thomas joins us. Coach, all the way down to southeastern Lakeland, Florida. That's a terrific area to visit, to play a football game in. I'm sure you'd like to have a couple extra days to enjoy some of the sights and scenes, but man, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous area, tremendous stadium, and just the atmosphere. They did a really great job with their total production, from the game management to facilities to everything. So it's a nice place to play. Obviously, we would have liked it won, and it's a little far to be traveling on a bus, but it was a very, very nice area. We had a tremendous night with the weather. When you go to Florida, especially in September, you think it's going to be miserably hot. So they like to play at night, and typically teams traveling that far wouldn't play a night game because you get back so late on Sundays. But we was like, let's play it at night. Let's do whatever we can to cool it down a little bit. And then a little rain came in, doused us before kickoff, and it cooled down. It was a nice night for football.
Well, something to be said about that playing at night. At least that road trip home, you're just, the body's ready to sleep. So you kind of turn that 12, 13-hour bus ride home. You can shrink 6, 7 hours off of that if you can find a way to get a little rest.
No doubt about it. And it, I was really pleased with the way we traveled. We left early Thursday, and our guys, I felt like our legs were under us. Last year we went to Weber. I thought we was a little weakened, but this year, I feel like we were fresh, ready to go. Beautiful night for football, beautiful place, and kudos to them for doing an outstanding job with their production.
Let's take a look at the box score from that matchup. Campbellsville fell 44-27 in a game that probably felt a little closer to that. I'm sure Southeastern was pretty nervous a few different times in that ball game. David Richardson with arguably his best game as a Tiger, at least on the ground. 14 carries, 119 yards, 3 touchdowns for David Richardson there. Talasufia, 14 of 29 from the field, 178 yards. I think he had a touchdown pass in there. Darius Moore, again, continuing his stellar play for Campbellsville. 10 total hits, 2.5 tackles for a loss as he continues to rack up those TFLs this season. And Coach David Richardson, let's talk about the running game early. Talasufia early, first drive of the football game, you guys are able to waltz right down the field. And I know sometimes when you have those struggles offensively like you guys have had, a fast start can be critical for your team.
Yeah, it was huge for us, and it actually, I was surprised because we had that fast start, then we kind of tapered down on offense for a while. But to come out and set the tone like that was great because number one, we sent a message to Southeastern that we are a legit football team. And we've struggled with confidence on offense. We've just struggled with it. And, to set that tone right there, I'm feeling as the head coach that, hey, we're getting ready to have a great night, offensive football here because our guys are focused. They're learning what to do, and now they understand it, the concepts, so let's go. So I was feeling real good about that at that point.
And Campbellsville would see Southeastern finish the first half. I think the score at the break was 24-7. The offense, as Coach mentioned, kind of tapered off. I think you finished the first half with 52 yards after that first drive. And you go to the locker room, and this is where it really starts to feel like that Lindsey Wilson game. You go into the locker room, you've got that deficit. They come out, they get a score as they get the football, but after that, you guys really started to find a groove offensively.
Yeah, we go in and make a few adjustments and challenge some guys and make a few adjustments on the board. And a big play that tapered us going into the locker room some was the big touchdown right before half that we shouldn't have gave up, but we gave that up. And that you go in at 17-7, it's a little different look to 24-7, especially knowing they're getting the ball first. But I thought our coaches did a great job at halftime making adjustments. I thought our guys bought into those adjustments, and we came out the second half, held them to a field goal, I believe. And then offense got rolling a little bit.
And then before we move too far ahead, let's go back to the first half just a bit. We don't have highlights this week. We sent Zach Clements. He had a camera issue. Technology sometimes will fail you. But you guys have an early turnover in that game. You've got the football. You turn it over at the 9-yard line, and your defense put out that drive. They held to a field goal attempt there. For Southeastern. And I thought that was really big. And you can look at the end of the day, 44 points, but you guys played pretty good defense most of the night.
Yeah, I think, defensively, we've played good defense this year. and sometimes in some bad situations. You know, we've made some stops inside the 20 and the 10 a couple of times and held teams to field goals, which is still giving up points. But when you give up 3, it's a lot better than giving up 7. So I think our defense has played well. The thing we've failed on defense is, number one, getting turnovers. This defensive team, you know, as fast as we are and as aggressive as we are, you would think that we would be getting more turnovers, but it's probably the worst turnover team I've had, you know, when it comes to creating turnovers. So we're struggling with that. Had the opportunity the other night for 3 or 4 picks that just went through our hands and we dropped or didn't make a play on the ball. And then we're still giving up the big plays. You know, if you don't give up these 3 or 4, you know, in some cases 2 big plays a game, then the score is completely different. I mean, so we're probably playing for 80 plays, we're playing great defense for 85, 86 of them. But those 3 or 4, you know, are corrupting us.
And then I thought that a big theme in that second half, Coach, first half, it felt like you were always playing the field position catch-up. You were never able to kind of get Southeastern pinned consistently. Second half, you guys really were able to kind of start flipping field position, even when you weren't scoring, picking up a couple of first downs and putting Southeastern in bad spots. And you finally started some drives on their side of the field or right at midfield, and that's where you were able to make a little noise.
Yes, no doubt about it. A couple things factor in that. Number one, we have to be getting some first downs on offense to move the sticks. And so when we're punting the ball, we're backing them up a little bit. 2, our punter has to come through, and you know Noel has been kicking the lights out of the football. And then you know defense has to hold them a little bit, so they're punting. You know, another big thing too is that we're fielding those punts now. You know, if you go back to the Lindsey Wilson game, that's a big factor. You know, we were 0 net yards on punt returns, and now we're fielding them. So sometimes we're not getting yards because we haven't to fair catch them. But there's very few that are hitting the ground now, and that's huge. So instead of us taking the ball where it rolls back to the 25, we're getting it at the 40, 45, which makes a difference for our offense.
And then one more thing to touch on there, I was really impressed with a team that has struggled, like you've mentioned, we've talked about some offensively, starting to maybe find that rhythm we hope now. You had a touchdown called back, Zion Kenner, but your guys stuck in there, stayed with it. 2 plays later, they went back and scored again. And sometimes for teams that maybe have had issues offensively, they would never be able to do that. But your guys showed that ability.
Yeah, I mean, and once again, it just comes down to the execution and belief. So that shows you right there. We executed the play, Zion scored, but because of the miscues we've been making all year, one of the guys lined up on the line of scrimmage, covered him up. So and then he went out on a route, so it's called back. But then we come back and we execute 2 more plays and we get in the end zone. So when we execute, we can get things done, even against these top 10, top 20 teams, where our failure has been offensively to execute consistently.
A couple of Tigers from the Sunshine State went back home this past weekend. One of them picked up an honor as he played a game down at Southeastern. Marcus McCants, who's from just outside of the Lakeland area. Seffner is actually about halfway between Tampa and Lakeland. McCants finishes with 9 tackles, a couple passes broken up, and one of those captains, Coach, picks up a Bluegrass Defensive Player of the Week, 2nd consecutive for the Tiger defense.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge for Marcus, not only because he's from down that area right there and all his family's there, but just, you know, he's a senior, he's a captain, and, you know, he's one of the leaders of this defense. So it's great for him and it's great for that defense, you know, him and Darius back-to-back weeks of getting those honors.
The Tigers now set their sights on a matchup with Georgetown College. They will come to Tigertown this coming weekend as Campbellsville gets back into divisional play inside of the Mid-South Conference. We'll step away, take a look at this past weekend in terms of the conference view. We'll come back later on in the show as well and touch on that matchup with Georgetown. Stay with us here on the Perry Thomas Show.
Solace at Saloma Baptist, an intergenerational church.
Here, the family of Christ extends far past the walls, and hospitality is held on high.
We are committed in our pursuit of discipling every nation and generation.
For more information on service times, visit salomabaptist.com or call 270-789-0082 and add our Facebook at Saloma Baptist Church.
Saloma Baptist, ministering to the community and to the world in the 21st century.
A champion doesn't get days off. It takes determination and drive to realize goals. From long nights to early mornings. From the courts to the classrooms, to online. At Campbellsville University, this is why we play. This is how we learn. This is where champions are made. Find your calling for a life change at campbellsville.edu.
Citizens Bank and Trust Company serves the Taylor County area with 3 convenient locations. Our online and mobile options can make your banking experience even easier, with features such as digital wallet, Touch ID login with our mobile app, and online deposits. Mobile banking also gives you the online control of your Citizens Bank debit card. Along with our banking locations, we also offer a no-charge ATM in the Student Commons on the campus of Campbellsville University. Citizens Bank and Trust in Campbellsville. Member FDIC, Equal Housing.
Hello, Tiger fans. Welcome back to the Perry Thomas Show here on the Campbellsville University Sports Network. Matt Payton with you in the studios as we visit with the head coach, Perry Thomas. The Fighting Tigers this coming week get back into divisional play and a big weekend around the Mid-South Conference. But before we look ahead, let's look back, Coach. Some important games inside the conference a week ago. You had a team in Reinhardt taking on Kennesaw State.
Yeah.
Some other important matchups. Cumberland U, I think, and Kaiser had a big one. We reached that point in the season now where some of those divisional games, or actually those non-divisional games, are over with.
Right.
So now you've kind of reached what you've called before, maybe the preseason. Now you've reached that point where it's gonna be business around the league for everybody now.
Yeah, every game counts now. And, there's been some big games to happen. Some teams out there that are very good but have 1-2, 1-3 records right now because of the crossover play and playing some bigger schools in some cases. And everybody's taking some lumps. It's not like everybody's just walking through this thing. There's a few undefeated teams out there, but even they're going to get some matchups that are going to be challenges for them as things come up. So, it's an interesting year. No one's really off their game. We're sitting here 1-3, but we're still very confident that we have a shot to win our division. Just because of the quality of teams in here, everybody is so good, there's going to be other teams take lumps.
Yeah,
so we're still in the picture.
There's certainly, it's going to be tough to walk through this thing unscathed. That's going to be a virtual impossibility. Let's take a look at some of those scores from a week ago. We'll start with some of the Mid-South Conference teams. Let's see here. You've got some of the non-divisional teams on this page for those following along on television. Warner and KCU. That's maybe somewhat of a surprise with KCU's fast start, Coach.
Yeah, very interesting game. Haven't seen either one of those teams on film. We have KCU against Georgetown, but we haven't really watched that one yet. But Warner's has struggled, and KCU has been on fire. And Warner went up there and scored a lot of points and got a huge win for them. So that's got to be a big confidence booster for them. Yeah,
a couple of teams maybe still trying to figure out exactly what they are now at this point. And then another score we look at there, Kennesaw State and Reinhardt. That game, 31-7. Coach, that game was actually called, I guess, early in the second half. Maybe some weather issues or something. There was a delay, and so they come together and decide that they won't finish that one. And we talked about that before. Reinhardt kind of slipped up last week, then or I guess 2 weeks ago. Then this past weekend, the loss to Kennesaw State. So now they've got to be careful. Fell all the way to 21 in the poll, and that's a team who's been a traditional playoff team. They've got to be careful now.
Yeah, they have to get back to winning. And I'm not sure if there's anyone in their division that'll compete with them. So they may be okay. Somebody might sneak in there and give them a shot, but their division isn't quite as thick as the Sun and the Bluegrass with the teams right now.
And I think traditionally the one team in that division that you've always been able to count on is Faulkner, and they're still maybe trying to figure some stuff out as well. So let's take a look at some of the other scores last weekend for more of the Bluegrass divisional teams. I believe here Thomas More gets the win over Cincinnati Christian, and that's a close matchup in terms of proximity with those two teams. Georgetown and St. Andrew, 41-34. Georgetown with their first win of the season. Bethel and Point, 48-21. Kaiser, Cumberland, Tennessee, 38-26. And then there at the bottom, Coach, that is the one that maybe jumps off the page at you. That is not a typo. Yeah. Cumberlands of Kentucky and Union, a 98-0 score in the Battle of the Brass Lantern. Cumberlands, of course, victorious. We'll get to that game at the bottom here in a moment, Coach. What else pops off at you there?
Well, I think obviously the Kaiser, Cumberland, Tennessee, two ranked teams. And it looks like it was a good battle right there. But both of those teams were top 25 going into last weekend's games. And Kaiser's on a little roll now. And I think, and I can't remember exactly, but I think they come here next year early in the season against us. But they're on a little roll now. Knocked off Reinhardt last week, and knocked off another top 25 team this week. Thomas More, Cincinnati Christian, two teams that are real close by. Nice win for Thomas More. They're a bluegrass team. Cincinnati Christian's in the Appalachian now. So that looked like it was a good game also. And then, of course, Georgetown, who we played this week, and their win over St. Andrews, which St. Andrews has a very good program, very good team, and it was a nice win for Georgetown after that, big loss down at Southeastern.
Yeah, Georgetown with that 1-2 mark after that win over St. Andrew. That was actually the last weekend of September. That was Georgetown's first home game of the season.
Yeah.
And then they're going to come right back on the road this week. So they've got some home games stacked up later on in the schedule, just like these Tigers do. And then there at the bottom of that page earlier, the Battle of the Brass Lantern, we were talking before we went on, Coach. That's one, I don't care if you're on the good side, the bad side. I'm not sure if you can decide which is which. You never want to really be a part of one of those games because there's no winner in that one.
Yeah, people, as fans, you talk about we want to beat them 100-0 and so forth. But, as a coach and a competitor, even with people that I may not respect and like, I don't want to beat them that badly. Now, I'm not saying anything against them because I have no idea what went on in the game, how it happened, anything. And sometimes it's hard not to score against people. I mean, sometimes their defense just doesn't match up, and I've been on both sides, and it's not fun on either side. It's really not. You don't want to beat anybody that bad. You feel helpless. There's nothing you can do, and you feel the same way on the other side. So, I hope Union can respond to it, and both those teams can come out of it well.
Yeah, and we had heard, looking at some of the numbers and talking to a few people, that Cumberland's basically ran the ball the entire second half and did all those things that you could try to do to maybe protect that a little bit. I went back and looked at the stats. They only faced 5 third downs the entire night. Yeah. So you kind of look at that, and like you mentioned, maybe the defense just didn't match up, and there was nothing Cumberland's could do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, so you can't fault the Cumberland's people because sometimes it's just nothing you can do. And I was telling you earlier, I've been in games where we've actually taken knees so we didn't score, which is probably more embarrassing than going on and scoring. But at the time, you're thinking, I don't want to put up those type of points on people. And sometimes it's just nothing you can do, and you hate to see it. But like I said, both those teams, both of them well coached, and they got tremendous men leading their program. So, hopefully Union will, shine and come back from it and keep their wits about them and confidence.
The Battle of the Brass Lantern goes to the Cumberland's Patriots here in this 2019 season. An old rivalry between those two teams, and Campbellsville gets arguably their oldest rival this weekend, as well as Georgetown will come to Tiger Town. We'll step away, come back, and get the head coach's thoughts on that matchup. Stay with us here on the Perry Thomas Show.
Central Kentucky's newest music venue is right around the corner. Located in Summersville, Kentucky, Green River Live is bringing you the artists you love in their new 1,000-seat venue. Shows every Saturday night featuring the Heart of Kentucky band, Green River Live's very own house band, made up of current and former touring musicians. Drop by the GRL Grill or our indoor concession area and pick up your very own Green River Live merchandise. Green River Live on the web at greenriverlive.com.
Campbellsville University Cosmetology teaches beauty inside and out. The cosmetology students at CU receive salon experience while learning in a contemporary environment from faculty who have worked in the industry. With areas of study ranging from hairstyling to salon management, Campbellsville University Cosmetology can help you turn your passion into a profession. Kickstart your cosmetology career today. Visit campbellsville.edu/cosmetology.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dwayne Norman, Senior Pastor of Campbellsville Baptist Church. You are invited to experience a caring community where the Word of God is taught and Christ is honored. We invest in the future of our children and youth by providing environments where they are loved, discipled, and taught the Bible, as well as our college ministry, which partners with students and faculty at Campbellsville University. Sunday school begins at 9:15, worship at 10:30. Come join us.
Thanks for staying with us, Tiger fans. We continue here on the Perry Thomas Show as Campbellsville University gets set for their biggest matchup, maybe the biggest rivalry matchup, the oldest this weekend, as they will welcome Georgetown to campus. Matt Payton here as we visit with Perry Thomas. And Coach, the Georgetown matchup we'll get to in a minute, but first, you get back into the Bluegrass divisional play, 4 of your last 6 at home, 3 straight at home. Yeah. This is the time for you guys to go on that run.
Yeah, it is. And, we've been in these situations before, and, we've probably played as tough of an early season schedule as anybody in NAIA football, except those teams that are playing, D2 and D3, 1AA schools. I mean, we've played 3 top 20 teams, in some cases top 15 teams, and we're back home now, and it's time to get into league play and get rolling a little bit. And I think our guys, having confidence is beginning to pick up. We're seeing glimmers of excitement during games and hope. So it's time to get it rolling.
And I know you're an old school guy and you compartmentalize pretty well, but when you see Georgetown on the schedule, it's going to mean a little more to your guys in your locker room. Yeah. Mean a little more to those alumni that are going to check in with you this week, those guys that you've coached over the last 10, 11 years or so. How do you get through this week? Can you handle it business as usual for the most part?
Yeah, we won't think about it. If we were undefeated or something, it might be a little different, but we're sitting here 1-3. We're fighting for our lives, so we don't care who we're playing. We have to have the same intensity, the same preparation. The guys, especially the much older guys, the Coach Finley, Coach Peach era, and Coach Deaton era, this game is huge. I mean, it's huge to us too, don't get me wrong, but these guys over the last 10 years, big thing has been Lindsey Wilson because they're right down the road. But those guys didn't play Lindsey. They were playing Georgetown as the big game, and Georgetown for years was one of the most dominant teams in not just league play, but in NAIA. So this game is huge to all the alumnus, and it's a huge week for our guys also, but more because we need to get a win, we need to get a divisional win, and we need to get a win at home than it is just because it's Georgetown.
It's a Georgetown team that comes in not their usual self, perhaps 1-2. We've not faced a lot of Georgetown teams where they come in with a record that's under 500. It just hasn't happened under Coach Bill Cronin. He picked up his 200th win this past weekend over St. Andrews. You are very familiar with them and what they want to do offensively. They're right now kind of in between quarterbacks. They're playing a little bit of both, Hunter Krause and Zach Dampier. Talk me through kind of that Georgetown offense and the Tiger defense this week.
Well, they're a typical Georgetown offense. One thing people have to look at is they lost to Southeastern. Well, everybody Southeastern's played has lost to them. So, the Southeastern, there's no embarrassment about losing that game. They did lose the first one to Kentucky Christian, but it's a game that they dominated for the most part. And then, I think some point in the game they probably said, we're used to beating them. They're the same Kentucky Christian, and they relaxed. And Kentucky Christian came back and beat them at the end. Very explosive offense. Some guys on the perimeter that can run and catch. Big, strong offensive line like they always have. Big, strong fullback type tailback. They don't typically have speed demons back there. They got the big guys that can just bowl over you for some positive yards. And they're playing 2 quarterbacks that are very capable. One, the Krause kid, he ate us up last year. I mean, it was pitch and catch. And then Dampier has been come in from, I think he's the kid from Danville High School. And we wanted him out of high school, and he's come in and he's lighting things on fire. He was player of the week this past week. So very capable offense, and we're going to have to guard against the big plays. And then we have to turn them over some. We have to get some interceptions or some fumbles and those type of things to slow that powerful offense up because they're beginning to get in a rhythm and move the ball a little bit.
Well, and hopefully you guys, after the last 2 weeks, are starting to get in that rhythm offensively as well. Walk me through what Coach Garris and the offensive guys are looking at this week as they.
Well, they're in that typical 3-4 defense that they play, going to slant angle a little bit up front, bring one of what they call a bandit outside linebacker off the edge quite a bit. Don't know which one's going to come, and they're a typical Georgetown defense. They defense St. Andrews pretty good. St. Andrews has a powerful offense, and they defense them pretty good. They struggled at Southeastern, but Southeastern was able to hit the big play. I think Southeastern generated over 600 yards against them, but quite a few of those were just big plays. So offensively, the thing we have to do is take care of us. You know, that's our problem. Is it isn't so much the defensive line from Southeastern or the linebackers from Lindsay or those places. People, it's been us. You know, we don't line up right. We have the penalties. We forget plays. We come off of blocks up front. Just those little fundamental things that you should be doing, we've just struggled doing consistently. When we're doing them, you can see us rolling. But it's the consistency of it that we're struggling in. So our focus, you know, and it sounds bad, but our focus really isn't on Georgetown as much as it is on just game planning ourselves and getting better at what we do, because we feel like when we get things going, we could be very good. It's just staying at that consistent level.
And the Tigers have dropped the last two matchups in this series. Their last win come in 2014, 15-16. They were off the schedule. 17 was the game where I think you could have played that 100 times, and the way it played out, we would have found a way to win that game, missed some field goals and extra points throughout that typically wouldn't happen. They won the game last year. So it's been a handful of years since you've got a win over this bunch for different reasons, but it's time to get one.
Yeah, well, it is. It's time to get a big win over them, and it would do so much for our program and for our season. To get that win and to get on a little baby roll right here against a name quality program like Georgetown. Now, Coach Cronin's over telling his guys the same thing. You know, we got to win this week against St. Andrews. Now, let's follow it up with one against Campbellsville, and let's keep this thing rolling. So it's going to be a good battle. It's going to be a good battle. And typically when we play them, you know, we have some good hard-fought games. And, you know, last year we struggled offensively against them. 2 years ago, a game that we felt like we should have won, you know, hands down should have won and lost in double overtime. So we'll be ready, and you know, we're just going to work on us and getting better and giving ourselves an opportunity to win the game.
Coach, before we let you go, let's take a look around the Mid-South Conference. A few other important ones coming up this weekend. One is going to happen Thursday night. That's the first one that you look at there on that graphic. Lindsey Wilson and Bethel, a very, very important ball game.
Big game.
Yep, Cincinnati Christian, St. Andrews, Reinhardt at KCU, St. Thomas Weber, Faulkner, Kaiser, but that Lindsey Bethel one, that's going to be a big one in the Bluegrass.
Well, that's a huge game in the Bluegrass. You know, both of those are undefeated in division play. Bethel's one loss was to Lamar. I think they're a Division 1AA or Division 2 or something. That Lindsey is undefeated. So, you know, somebody's going to take a L this week in divisional play, and that's big. Both of them, I think they're both tied for top 10 in the country. I think in the top 25, I think they're tied for 10th. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
You sit at home Thursday night and watch that one?
I don't know.
Maybe. And some more games going on this weekend as well throughout the Mid-South Conference. Union and Bluefield, then Georgetown, Campbellsville, of course, at 7 o'clock Saturday evening. Ave Maria and Southeastern could be a big one in the sun there. And then Cumberland of Kentucky, Cumberland's and Pikeville, and that's one to watch as well. Saturday night, Coach. That seems to be a much improved Pikeville bunch.
Yeah, Pikeville's, you know, I've watched them on film. They're very good. Very good. You know, once again, their two losses are to tough people. They lost to Reinhardt in a tough one. I think it was an overtime game, and they lost to I think Murray State, one of those FCS schools. So they're a very good football team, very capable of doing some things. So it's going to be an interesting game right there because that's another big divisional game. Cumberland's, we know what they're about. They just put 98 up against Union. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
Coach, best of luck this weekend against Georgetown.
Yep.
Campbellsville and Georgetown College Saturday night under the lights at Finley Stadium. You can catch the ball game on all of the CU Sports Network avenues this weekend. 7 o'clock the kickoff time for that. 6:30 the Tiger Tailgate Show begins. A special thanks to Coach Perry Thomas for joining us this week. We'll see you next time on the Perry Thomas Show.
A champion doesn't get days off. It takes determination and drive to realize goals. From long nights to early mornings. From the courts to the classrooms to online. At Campbellsville University, this is why we play. This is how we learn. This is where champions are made. Find your calling for a life change at campbellsville.edu.
Solace at Saloma Baptist, an intergenerational church.
Here, the family of Christ extends far past the walls, and hospitality is held on high.
We are committed in our pursuit of discipling every nation and generation.
For more information on service times, visit salomabaptist.com or call 270-789-0082 and add our Facebook at Saloma Baptist Church.
Saloma Baptist, ministering to the community and to the world in the 21st century.